Welcome to Off the Court. We're here at the Surrey Sports Park, and in the words of Joe Tripp, one of the most random games of the Super League this season. It's round 14, and it's fair to say this was a big match. We know we're heading in towards finals. Stars really wanted to come out on top to give themselves a bumper, and you did that. And Joe, it was a pretty confident and dominant win in the end, 69-42.
Yeah, something we've been working on, I think, over the last few weeks, and we've had it building. It's been really nice this week to finally have our 12 kind of back in house, and you can see the kind of the spring in the step of the girls getting each other back, and a really good performance from us tonight.
Well, with me as well is Mikki, player coach of Surrey Storm, and of course both of you player coaches for your sides. And Mikki, you talked about Stars being the thorn in your side, and I talk about a lot this season about how teams match up, and it just wasn't the kind of style for you guys.
Yeah, I don't think we match up well for us. I think, and it's interesting, like we literally did the same thing last season, but role reversal. So, for us, it's just about trying to find that consistency week to week, I guess, regardless of the opponent and the style that they play. They might differ slightly, but it's not a 30-goal difference. So for us, it's just about making sure we can find a way through it, even when the going gets tough. Because the Stars dominated across the court today in every position, so we just weren't good enough.
Well, look, I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the game because it did have everything. It had 2 suspensions as well, one of which we missed, and I'm sorry, Joe Tripp, because
nice.
I know we missed it. But we are going to talk about it because Storm, that's your third one. So Sophie Drakeford-Lewis got sent to the bench for 2 minutes. Joe, we'll talk about yours to start off with. And the reason we missed it, I think, for me, is it was so sort of innocuous in terms of what was going on in the game at the time.
Yeah, I felt that way too. When the whistle blew, I just thought, okay, like an out of court or contact, or but to get sent off, it was actually quite a shock. I didn't think, I know I'm a physical player, but that's definitely not the most physical hit I've probably taken or delivered this season. So we'll go back and look at it, but you can't change that outcome, and I'm just really proud of how the girls handled it. Having me off, it's not something we've had before, and they absolutely stormed through it, and then just jumped back on court.
Well, it's interesting, Mikki, because you guys have had a bit of practice, and you were talking to me about this in the possession netball, and actually it was quite a special moment here in the Sports Park. It brought back a lot of memories for me with that crowd going mental. I mean, usually we're up by about 20 goals, but you played possession for a good 2 minutes there. But I mean, we need to talk a little bit more about the suspensions. I watched Sophie Drakeford-Lewis. It looked like she had eyes for the ball. So we know big hits are going to happen, but I think the key here at the minute is umpires have rightly got to make decisions in split seconds. They've got each other to talk to. But talk to me about the appeal process, because at the minute that is non-existent.
Yeah, look, I'll caveat with I'm not an umpire, and who would be an umpire? And to be fair play to the umpires in that moment for going to confer. I like to see that. I think they should probably do that on everyone. If it's a decision that's going to have mass implication, i.e. a suspension in the moment or potentially going to be removal from another game, then I think there should be another step in it to protect both parties, I guess, umpires and players alike. We know firsthand from what we went through last week that there is no appeals process at this current moment in time. There's an appeals process currently for something that could happen in a game that is missed by the umpire, and what was quoted to me was biting, spitting, punching. But outside of that, decisions by the umpire in the moment are final, regardless of correct or incorrect after review, I guess. So, that's really hard for both sides. That's hard for umpires, that's hard for us, it's hard for defenders, I guess, particularly when your eyes are on the ball or your body position is looking at the ball. I think there was another one, Emily Nicol, earlier on in the season. If you see footage of that, it's unfortunate in the hit that happens, and no one wants anyone to go down or get hurt or be involved in a big collision, but if your eyes and your body position are completely to the ball and you can't see what's happening behind you, then is there intent? Is it dangerous? I don't know. And we're probably at danger, I guess, as you guys now probably go towards finals. Do you now not contest because the second suspension is a removal from a game, and what if that's a semi or a final? I think there's probably a bigger question around the league in general, implications for that going forward, and it probably has to be reviewed for next year.
And I think, Joe, we were just talking about this off screen about the stuff in New Zealand. This is not just a UK problem at the moment. This is happening at the SSN, it's happening in ANZ, and we're seeing more and more that the big hits are what probably get the most attention, rightly so, but there is this fine line between at what point are we allowing players to contest and at what point is it completely dangerous or intentional.
I think if you've got eyes for the ball, it's definitely not intentional, and I think if they stay on feet, I don't think, there has been some flattening, but I know my one, she was on feet the whole time. It wasn't obviously that physical enough to put her to the floor, but I think with with it, it has to be, was it deliberate? Was it a deliberate, run through, I'm actually just going to, kind of put my body in. But I think as long as you've got hands to the ball, one or two and a strong hand, you'll go in for the ball. I've seen it in New Zealand a bit, and you can see, and I've seen some of the keepers now are playing quite a tentative game, and you're going, well, is that going to build you into international netball? So, rightly, because that's obviously the aim of these leagues, is to build up our international players. So, it's going to be a really interesting space, but I definitely think there needs to be an appeals process.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be wider discussions, isn't there, from the back of these seasons and moving into the international game, because the reality is you want 7 players on the court. Our game doesn't sort of bode well for players being off, just as the positional way. So it's quite an interesting topic, and I'm sure something we're going to talk about more. But listen, on off the court, we like to make it a little bit more lighthearted.
Oh, good.
So don't worry, you're under no more pressure now. You did very well. But listen, I want to get into the player coaching piece. So I always used to say when I was player coaching that one of the first things I had to do was remove a WhatsApp group, because your team needs your time away. So is that something that happens in your teams?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in one, which is one with all of the staff, and then there's a separate one with the players. And there's certain elements that I just don't get involved in. You don't really get involved in the dressing room side of things anymore, which is sad. Like, I used to love that as a player, and I was like the energy person. I was like the towel above your head. That was what I was good at. So for me, it's kind of hard to distance myself from that. All of the social stuff I might get involved in a bit, but then there's a line, I guess, probably for me, because I'm similar age or sometimes younger than quite a lot of the players that we're dealing with. So it's just making sure that we set that intention from the start of the season, and then we continue from there. But definitely not in the gift sharing players group, that's for sure. They're probably about me.
They have to have a line. Yeah. I mean, they definitely had nicknames about me. Mikki was involved in that, but that's a story for another day. Jo, you mentioned in your interview about your partner in crime, Jazz Brown, and I was saying in comms how refreshing it is when you get to a certain age that you have younger players to come through and mould and help you. But how important is that for you as a player coach to have complete trust in the partner that you're with?
Yeah, I think huge. One thing we're trying to get Jazzy to do is just speak a little bit more, and she's coming a long way. Her game has come a long way massively over the last 2 years, and I think knowing her for a bit longer than those 2 years and just seeing her put in the work, she's kind of one of those players that will come to you, she'll ask questions, she'll clip herself on video and ask questions around stuff. She still sometimes looks at me and it's like, well, you said it this way this time, and then you said it differently this time. Why? Normally it's where the middies are, etc. Do you know what I mean? So she's I love that she is tapping into my brain and my knowledge, because I think that's what I've got to give as obviously a coach, but also an older player. I'm significantly older than most of my team. And so and I feel like Jazz for me, she's the youth coming through that I think England needs.
I mean, it's not just a security blanket on the court as well, it's off the court. And I've had loads of questions in, and mainly about the player coach piece, about who's making the decisions when you're on the court. How important is it to have that safety blanket on the bench as well? And you're working with Mel Mansfield. She's been someone that was massively important and integral in my sort of player coaching role. What does she bring, and how much do you need from her?
Yeah, I guess for me it's probably slightly different because of the nature of the position. I don't get a second to breathe. There isn't a pause in play at centre, so you can't even be having those tiny nitbit conversations around the ball. So I think over the 5 years that I've been doing this, that's probably the biggest part of it that I've had to lean into is who can I surround myself with that's going to be that biggest strength that I can trust implicitly, who we think on the same wavelength. And it was massive for me to go out and get someone like Mel, who had been a head coach, been a director of netball before. She literally gets it, because some people think they get it, and for all the right intentions they really do, but they have no idea. Do you know what I mean? It's really tough. Mel's incredible. Bianca has been a breath of fresh air this year, and probably now turned into one of my closest friends, although she still doesn't let me hug her, and I'm so sad.
She's not a hugger.
She's not a hugger, no. They're just brilliant, and I think we all personality-wise bring something slightly different. Bianca is hard-faced, raises an eyebrow, and everyone cowers like your dad's talking to you. I'm a bit of both, and think I'm a little bit more hard line, and then remove myself from it. But Mel is like the there, mum, arm over your shoulder, which your shooters probably do need. So, I think that over the 5 years it has been a really big learning, and this year I really do think we've kind of got that relationship right.
Jo, we talk about close friendships, and probably there's less known about Hayley McKellar, but I know she's a very close friend of yours. I work with her at brilliant technical, tactical coach, and she's been quite open and honest about the difficulties sometimes of being that assistant coach on there when you lot aren't sitting by their sides. But how important has that been for you?
really important. I think this year it was really important actually to look at other technical coaches as well as Sam and Rach to support Hay League, knowing that, for me, I am on court all the time at the moment as well. So, and from Goal D, believe it or not, sometimes I can't breathe either. I know it's not centre, but it's still a lot of running. And so, for me and Hayley, I still think we are still finding that. I think last year was very different because we had more of a 7, maybe 8 that we were playing. Then we were, quite damaged in I think week 7 where we lost 3 of our 12. Whereas this year it's more, we've got experience all across the bench, and it's looking at ways we can impact them and the combos we've been, playing and training. So I think there's sometimes I'm like, Haley! And then she catches my eye and she's in it. But we know kind of where the players are going to come on. It's not, it's not rocket science, and so that's kind of easy as well. You just kind of have them in their bibs, and we know those are the changes we're going to possibly make in the game.
I talk a lot about that, and I used to do a lot of player coaching. You almost preempt where things are going to happen. Is that something that's key for you, so you don't ever look over and think, no, that's not what we talked about?
Yeah, look, your assistant coaches are involved in everything from start to finish, right? So they may not have the overall decision, but you're consulting them on player recruitment, on mixed matches with people, the tactical, who matches up against who. You spend all of that time preparing video, then in training you're looking at certain combos, and this deep into the season you'll know now, really, like you might have days like today where you can, expose everybody, but really you might go, okay, well, this is the 9 or this is the 10 we're going to stretch to, and if we're going to make changes, it's probably going to be in this order, in this court area, depending on how the game evolves. So it's just about making sure you are all on the same page in the preparation phase, so that the game bit is easy. It's a bit like a player, right? The game bit is where you play with freedom and without fear, same as coaching. That's where it's your opportunity to be brave, and you don't second guess and you don't hesitate. You just make the call and you fall on your sword regardless, right? So it's just about making sure that the work goes in the prep.
A couple of quick questions then, Jo. How easy is it to manage the culture when your name's first on the team list? Because I know I used to struggle with that. I'd be like, and wing attack today will be me.
No, you didn't.
Well, inside.
It was a
but that is important, right, in terms of recruitment and who you do, because the reality is, if you're still putting yourself out there to play a coach, you're still backing yourself to be on that court, and that is a management piece from a cultural piece as well, right?
Massively. I think for me, what I found possibly, I definitely knew in my off season, you've got to work your socks off. Josie's coming from the goal keep bib, so you've got to be playing goal D if you're going to be on court. And I did, I ran a half marathon, got myself fit. So for me, it was more maybe leading by example and setting those standards of myself quite high, and then that just, I think, gains respect throughout the group as itself. I think the culture for us, we're very honest and transparent and try to be at, the best of times. I know for me, there's areas I can massively work on as a player coach. The feedback kind of after games is probably where I've been lacking. The team have informed me of that, and we push and move forward, but that's what I love. I'm really open to improving myself. I know I'm not a finished piece as a coach, and I really look forward to actually one day just coaching from the side.
You won't,
and
you'll
seeing,
hate it.
seeing it from a different perspective. So and I think the girls uphold the culture, that that their buy-in is to what they're doing, and they've got to love what they do, and I think it is really important. I do find on the list though, I'm kind of at the bottom. It's like goal shoot down, so I'm always kind of and then I'm like, me. Yeah.
Do you say me, or do you talk about yourself in third person? I'm third person. I'm like Mikki.
No, I'm me. I'm me.
Me. This guy.
Myself. I'm like me at goal D.
I'm on.
Yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, last question: playing and coaching. Then, what's the easiest?
Easiest. Oh, easiest.
God.
That's a really tough
I'd
question.
say playing for me.
Yeah, easiest because you're in it. You have control. The ball's in your hand, and you can only be mad at yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Impact.
Do you know what I mean? If it didn't materialise because you've made an error, well, then who are you going to look at? Do you know what I mean? It's like you. Whereas if you're coaching, you have to sort of just be like, okay, have I prepped them well enough? And I don't know, and we'll see how it unfolds. And I think I have, because I've spent loads of time looking at it, but you just don't know. So yeah, probably playing.
I think playing. I think, my mum laughed at the first game we had against Leeds this season. She's like, so you pass around the first 4 balls away, and then your team looked like they didn't want to give you the ball. But every time I was like, that's me, it's mine. And it kind of relaxed them. The coach makes mistakes, she's going to stuff up and just crack on. And they kind of allow you that space. Thank God.
Well, they have to.
I think
what they do is they moan about you in the other group.
100%. I think the loudest cheer went up, I think it was last week actually, and I finished a training 5 minutes early. And the cheer through the group. I was like, I know what you're talking about in your group chat.
I feel like
just saying she's not finishing.
One more, do it again, one more.
As the lights go off in the sports room, we've all been there.
As our where's our importance and recovery, Joe?
Well, listen, ladies, you've been an absolute pleasure to chat to. Look, I know it wasn't the result that Surrey Storm wanted this evening, but it was a cracking game for us as a spectator. Like I said, it had it all. Joe, it looks like finals are going to be on the cards for you guys, so good luck in the next few weeks. Obviously not too much against Sarries, because still like us to do well.
See you on Friday.
See you there. I'll see you there. But listen, if you're watching us live on YouTube, then don't forget to check out our podcast later in the week. And of course, if you're listening to us, stay tuned, because we have another great guest on the way. This week, we have Manchester Thunder's technical support coach. It's a mouthful. And head of Pathway, Laura Malcolm. You just thought I'd have nailed that. Welcome, Mouse. And also, it's a special double whammy because it's your birthday today.
It is. What else would I be doing on my birthday than talking to you?
Chatting netball is what we'd be doing on your birthday.
Yeah,
so I promise I won't keep you too long before you can carry on your celebrations and get your cake in. But listen, I'm going to start with that mouthful I just read out because it's a very fancy title at Manchester Thunder. But do you just want to explain kind of what that role is?
Yeah, I guess in terms of the pathway, it's supporting what they're already doing. Obviously, Thunder have already got a very successful pathway. So I've come in to oversee that. It's quite handy to have somebody who is not affiliated with any clubs and is there from a neutral perspective. And I guess, obviously, I've got so much experience as a player in pathways and at the top level at England. It's good just to have somebody there to help with that. Now, Karen always used to be involved with the pathway, so I've kind of took that role off her. And I guess this year's just been a really great one for me in terms of just getting to see how everything runs and having eyes on things and thinking, right, what direction can we go to make this better, I guess. Which, as you know, those kind of changes take time. So it's about seeing what we can do better and working on that over the years and just making sure that our pathway is the best and stays the best and pushes itself further and further.
Well, we're going to pick up on the pathway. My first question is, how has Greggy Cope taken a step back from that? Because as all head coaches know, you kind of like to be involved in everything.
Yeah, I mean, she still pretty much is involved in everything, if I'm totally honest. Like, she's supported me, and, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to pathway in particular, I don't know if there's any coach that knows it as good as Karen does. You know, she's worked in it from the very, very start. So, you know, she's trying to get all that knowledge to me, which it takes time, and she's still definitely communicating with people. So, yeah, I guess she's stepped back, but really she's still pretty much involved and still, yeah, very much speaking to me and Lauren about it. So, yeah, Karen, I don't think she could take herself out of many things, to be honest with you.
No, it's a bit of a glimpse into the future, Max, if you ever get that head coach role.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to touch on the bit you talked about then, that experience as a player, because, you know, you are only 33 today. So, yeah, still got plenty of more playing time in with you. And I know when we saw the team sheets this year and we saw your role appear, there was hope that you were going to be back on the court as well. Where are you kind of at with that? And is this the end? Is it still something you're hopeful to do?
Yeah, I mean, well, originally I thought I was rehabbing one knee injury that I've been managing for quite some time, which was kind of a big but normal rehab, I guess. And then found out that my other knee was just as bad. So that was two knees that I've got to get sorted. Plus, then I had appendicitis. So it's just been, it's been a snowball of things, but, you know, things usually come in three. So I'm hoping I'm done now. And I guess I've just started building back up. So, as you know, the league is what feels like a mystery to us all at the minute. Nobody knows exactly where it's going next year. That's for players and coaches. So I guess for me, it's just about staying focused in the moment of trying to get my knees back to a good level. And then I guess I'll just assess my options from there on both the coaching and the playing front, really.
Well, we spoke to Mikki Austin and Joe Tripp earlier in the show. That was live after
their game, and they're both player coaches for their respective clubs, Surrey Storm and Severn Stars, and I had that experience as player coaching as well. It's kind of a unique thing because we don't really see it happen in Australia and New Zealand. But when I look at your age, I look at your experience, we kind of hear that conversation. Would that ever be something on the radar? Like, would you be crazy enough to jump into that?
No, not at all. You guys, you three are crazy. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Like, I just think, one, I guess the type of player I am in terms of a tagger, man-on-man, although I do feel like I've expanded my knowledge on that with going to New Zealand. I don't think that lends itself nicely to being able to coach whilst you're playing. And I just well and truly commend all of you for doing both, to be honest with you, because I don't think I just like to be on one pain or the other. I don't want to be mixing things and be trying to coach and decide when's the right time to take myself off, when's the right time to, how am I communicating with my shoes, all that stuff. I ain't interested in. I'm interested in playing or coaching, one or the other.
No, I you know what, I totally get that. It's quite interesting hearing about what you perceive your style of player and how difficult that could be. And I think it does become very clear cut. You have to pick a style. So like Jo Tripp has literally taken a New Zealand zone and put it with Severn Stars, right? And she's found the players that can do that, because you're right, it's so hard to switch between and pick and choose things. That brings me kind of on then to what you're doing at Thunder and the learnings with Greggy, because you're a technical coach, not the assistant coach. Yeah. So what's the main differences between that and how has sort of working with Greggy expanded your horizons this year?
Well, it's been pretty amazing, to be honest with you. I feel incredibly lucky because not many coaches get this opportunity to kind of learn and develop. It's usually nothing, or people seem to get thrown into head coach positions and don't really see the bit behind the coaching sessions kind of thing. So from Karen, one thing that I think is amazing at Thunder is definitely the culture. And I think a lot of that comes from how Karen communicates with players. Everybody knows where they stand, the responsibility she gives to leadership. So being involved in a lot of those one-to-one conversations and seeing that side of things has been really helpful for me. I've never had that experience before. And even the sports science stuff, so the connection with physios, with S&C and all that side of thing is a whole new world to me, so it's been really helpful. And then in terms of the coaching side, me and Gabs has been assistant coach for a long time for Thunder. My first real season in 2012, she was our assistant coach, which it's just so funny to now be working with her, but she's also just like a great energy. So getting to work with her, and basically we just communicate together to put together whatever strategies we're going to do in defence, which is great fun because we've obviously got a great bunch of defenders, so we can pretty much throw anything at them and they'll give it a good crack. So yeah, that's what my role is. It's just defence with Gabs, and then just getting all the experience from trailing Karen around and seeing the behind the scenes kind of things and seeing what her role entails, which is, I guess, priceless kind of experience. Not many people get to do it at all.
No, I mean, well, it's so far so good, isn't it? You just get to throw around some defence strategies.
Exactly.
You've lost one game so far. You're top of the table. It doesn't look bad. While we're on defence, and you don't have to give me a long-winded answer on this, but the hot topic at the moment is suspensions.
Yeah.
And interesting stat from Thunder is they've got nobody in the top 10 stats for penalty count.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that been like a conscious effort? I mean, when you look at the stats for intercepts, Josie and Shadeen sit in the top 5 for intercepts, so you can see the style of play they're trying to do, which is different to your comfortable one-on-one style, right? And probably what we've recognised from Thunder over the years. Has that been because of the players you've got in there? Have suspensions even been talked about? I mean, are you targeting other teams? Are you looking at that sort of going, we don't want to be them, or actually we can use this massively?
Well, I think the types of players we've got definitely help that, but we've also really been challenging the girls with the style of play that we've been playing. So, we do know that our tagging game is absolutely our identity and we are all very good at that. But we've really been working on our defensive structures and been trying to implement a few different things as well. So it is really rewarding to see that we're not hitting the top of the table in contacts and things like that, because it just shows it's credit to the hard work the girls have been doing to kind of shift their mindset and what they're doing out there defensively. So it definitely has been something we've touched on, because as you know, one wrong challenge can get you sent straight off at the minute. So you'd be silly as coaches not to kind of acknowledge that. But I think the main thing is that we're fearless when we go for turnover, and it's an organised setup, I guess, so everybody knows what they're doing and what they're going on, and I think that really helps. And obviously having a really talented group of defenders also really helps.
Yeah, I think that comes with the trust in their structure, doesn't it? Because we touched on this briefly with Joe Tripp. You don't want to lose that element of going for ball either, because it's just the beauty of the game. So there is a very fine line. Well, listen, I'm going to leave the suspensions there, because I'll have Gary Burgess on the phone. We'll have to have a chat with him at some point to discuss all this. I cannot wait. I want to touch back on some of the other things you picked up on there then. So you threw in the kind of age, and I think that's really important. I find that there's this massive gap in English coaching in particular, where there isn't necessarily the leagues or the system to learn the game, to learn whether it's the tactical, technical, the time with players, the player management, which you're now seeing is a huge part of, probably more so often than the tactical, technical work. But, you are 33. When I look at Jill McIntosh being brought into the Cardiff Dragons side, she's 67. So reality is you've got a good 30 odd years to learn. Yeah, I know. It gets scary when you start looking at that and you think, God, I mean, as a player, you never want to do another pre-season, but as a coach 30 years in, I'm not sure how that works. But I just think it's quite interesting to hear your sort of point of view, that you're quite happy to sit and learn the trade and almost learn from some of the best and learn in a culture that's very comfortable to you.
Yeah, like I said, it's a really unique opportunity. And as far as I'm concerned, Karen is one of the most underrated. I don't know what people say about her, but I don't think people say enough about her. Coaches in the country, she's so successful. She's had success as a player, success as an assistant coach, success in pathway, success as a head coach. So if there's anybody to be learning from, I'm just happy to be behind her. And one thing people don't realise about Karen is just how hardworking she is. She is incredibly hardworking, but also never has lost kind of the care for players, which I think is, like you said, that's a huge part of the coaching and something that people really underestimate. So yeah, I just feel lucky to be learning from her. And obviously I've got experience from quite a few different coaches now. Like being coached with Monia, Sam Bird, Dan, Jess, Tracy, Mitz over in New Zealand, Karen. So I've got a whole heap of coaches, and I'm a big believer that you can be learning off everybody that you get coached by, even if it's one thing that you take away. So yeah, I love learning, to be honest with you. I'm a fan of it, and Karen is a good one to be learning off when it comes to coaching.
Well, I'll say it for you. I think Greg is one of the best tactical, technical coaches we've had in this country for a very long time. So there you go, just a little shout out.
Thanks.
No worries. But I like what you talked about there. You've had some big name coaches, like some big personality coaches as well. I always said that I molded my coaching on the good, the bad and the ugly that I had through the coaches. And we all have it, right? And not every style works for every player, whether it's your style of play, whether it's your style of coaching, your feedback, however it is. Is that something you've sort of taken on board and gone, oh, I like that, and all that didn't actually work for me?
Yeah, I've tried to, and I've also tried to just consider that the things that I like isn't the same as what other players like as well. So I've also tried to just think, well, what's my style and how am I going to go about things, and then just trying to react to how the players are responding to it. So yeah, I guess it's just a whole new world that I'm trying to navigate there and trying to find my feet in. But yeah, stealing things from that I've loved from coaches, but also trying to appreciate and recognise what other people like, not just me.
It's a really, really good point, because it's something that I probably learned the hard way as well, because just because I liked that a certain way doesn't mean that it works for everybody else. And exactly that. And it is about that constant change and putting people around you that can offer the things that you don't. So that brings us nicely onto the pathway then. So the secret to the Thunder pathway maps, because I pick up on what you said, you want it to maintain being the best pathway around. What does that look like then? Because I talk often, it's not always about the cherry on top. People want the wins in every age group. It's just not sustainable or possible. But what does the best pathway look like for you?
I think for me, the best pathway looks like a pathway that's going to get players into Super League, that has an endpoint to it. And that is absolutely what we've proven time after time. And like you said, it might not look like winning every age group. And I guess that's something that we having to reflect on and think about as well, because at the end of the day, we did used to win every single age group, and I guess the dynamic of the country has changed, and there's challenges from left, right and centre now. And it's about, for me, looking at the pathway this year, I think, right, how can we use that to the best of our ability? Where do we want to target? And how do we want to still make sure that we are growing players to eventually come into our Super League team? Because ultimately that's exactly what we want, to give as many girls the opportunity to get into that Super League team. I think if you ask Karen, she would definitely say she would love a full team from our pathway. That would be incredible. And yeah, that's to me that connection piece, and making sure that we're actually building players through and giving them not just the on-court experience, but the experience of what it will feel like when we get to Super League level. So I always talk about PA, like, that is a huge part when you get to Super League and when you get to the top. We're going to get our coaches used to doing that, how we're going to get our players used to doing that, and not just recording it and watching it, how you're going to analyse it. All that side of things needs to be done in our pathway and not just at the top. So yeah, to me, that's what a good pathway looks like, an actual endpoint that ends in our Super League, which is something that we definitely have at Manchester Thunder. And we've got players in other Super League teams as well. A lot of players started around.
Well, no, it's always been the case. And I think you're right. There's a balance out now when it comes to the elite, but they're still so dominant in so many areas and still produce so many players. It's interesting talking, because I'm with Greggy on this, and especially as the league moves pro, you want to be able to keep your own and build them through that culture. And we know that so much success comes from stability, right? Stability in your groups and environments, and learning to play with each other and understanding coaching styles and the way you want to play. So it becomes quite key. One of the things that I found working in London, in the London pathways, is that we've kind of lost that stability by having 3 teams, your Storm, your Pulse, your Mavs close by, that we have players switching left, right and centre. And, they spend a year on the bench and they don't want to do that anymore. So they're going to go over here and play, and they do that. And that jump around becomes so difficult for the very things that you're talking about. Location has helped you guys without a shadow. There is that piece of the puzzle, but there is that also part where you said you're head of the pathway, but you're neutral. You're not linked to any club. You came from a West Midlands pathway, so you came in and saw Manchester Thunder and came in it as a player, but you didn't have all that political element. How do you manage that with working with the clubs buying in? Because I think that's something that Thunder have done so uniquely, that your club system has never been split over loads of different people. It's gone, right, we are Thunder through and through. And you see that with the fan base as well.
It's like a continued work on that, to be honest with you. Like you said, our location is really helpful, and the fact that we have a lot of high performing clubs in the same area. We always try and bring a mixture of people into our trials. So there's county representatives. We obviously have our head coach and our assistant coach and development coaches coming into those environments as well. So it does just mean when it comes to trials, like, everybody gets a vote as well. So it is fair. It is bringing clubs in. We've got coaches from all of those different clubs around the area. So it does just mean that each club is getting to touch what we're doing here, and hopefully getting to take some of that away to their clubs as well, and seeing the process from start to finish. So I think that's something that's really helpful. And then obviously we're really trying to push on and build our connection with clubs and how we support clubs. We launched our club hub not too long ago, which, you know, we hope to be a real space for clubs to come in and work with us and share what they need support with, and we provide that for them. So yeah, I guess it's got to be a continued work on. You can't just expect it to keep happening. And like you said, with things changing, you never know what happened. We could have a club just down the road in Liverpool, so who knows? So that could change the dynamic of it. So it's our responsibility, I guess, to reach out and keep trying to strengthen those relationships, and just to acknowledge and allow clubs to recognise the hard work that they do, because the hard work that they do is essentially what has created such a competitive environment in our area. So that is a massive strength to our pathway, and we definitely acknowledge that, and we definitely love that and respect the clubs for doing that, because ultimately they are the baseline of what we do at Manchester Thunder. So yeah, it's a continued build on, and something that you'll always have to work on.
Well, you talk about your youngsters being ready to come into Super League, and we're seeing it again this year. You know, your Ella Bowens, your Millie Sanders, who's gone off to Sirens. You've had Anya Williams with you, Lois, who has just been incredible this year. Ellia McCormack, who came in as training partner, got elevated. You know, the list goes on. I want to touch on that intensity piece then, because what I find with a lot of the Thunder youngsters is they are ready. They are ready to step on the court. And there's still tactical things and experience pieces they need. But in terms of the level, they are ready to step onto the court. I had this chat with Sarah Francis Bayman a few weeks ago, who you are very good friends with. And as you know, Sarah pretends not to love netball. And then she sends me a voice note the other day. And it was like, T, I've been thinking about this intensity thing. And I'm like, dude, if I tell this story, you're going to get hammered because you say you don't love netball. But she spoke very much about the environment. Now, we know you're getting it right at Thunder. You spent some time in New Zealand. You played for the Tactics in 2023. All we ever hear about is how good the SSN is. New Zealand kind of just sits there and does its own thing. Was there a huge intensity shift in New Zealand, or was it similar to what we're doing?
There definitely is an intensity shift. I think it's a hard one, because I know that the way that Thunder train is up there, absolutely. I also know that it's probably not the same across the league for every team, just from conversations you have and how you speak with players. But, you know, you go to a Thunder session, you're going to be exhausted after it. The shift in New Zealand for me is on court. I feel like I trained as hard as I would at Thunder. But the fact that you're doing that 4 times a week instead of 2-3 times a week, the fact that you're doing a gym session straight into your training, then you have proper recovery after it, that's the difference. So that's what makes players able to maintain that level and turn up to game day fresh as a daisy, instead of having to do a week of work plus all their training at 8 to 10 o'clock at night. So for me, that was the big shift, the fact that you could actually be an athlete, look after your body, and turn up session after session and game after game. And, you know, every game out there, you didn't know who was going to win. Every game felt very intense. It was 1 goal wins, 1 goal losses, apart from maybe we had one really big blowout. But it was every week. It felt very intense, and it was big, and obviously you just don't get that here. And I don't blame players or teams for that, because at the minute, and this is exactly why professionalising the league is so exciting for everybody, we cannot train the same way that those guys train, because everybody's working at the same time. So there's only so much. Even putting your best foot forward will never be as much as them putting their best foot forward.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we spoke to Shani Layton last week, and she talked about being able to do the extras and what that looks like. And to be fair to her, when it was going pro, she was doing that. She wanted to do that. But it's very few and far between that you get players that are actually at that stage, or have got the work that can do that, or even are mentally capable of doing it. Just that understanding of what that looks like. And there were some correlations, I thought, with her international career to your international career, not in literally what happened like for like. but more about, we often see, you go, who do you want to talk to? And everyone wants to hear from Helen Housby, and they want to hear from Jeeva, and they want to hear, these players that have just made it, and it's all lovely. And they've all had their own journeys. But your international journey was pretty unique as well, because it definitely wasn't plain sailing. If you go back to 2012 is when you had your first debut, and you played for England at the World Cup in the semi-final, made history with the team, absolutely incredible. But there's a big piece in the middle that was probably tough. That wasn't just like, oh yeah, I got in 2012, and then by 2023, when my career was coming to an end, I won a nice shiny silver medal. A lot happened. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a graft, to be honest with you, a real graft, mentally and physically. Yeah. So obviously, when you first come onto the scene, you said something to me that I will never ever forget. Actually, I don't know when you said it, but it was a really good point, that it's easy for anybody to get into England. The hard part is being able to stay in it. And then Stacey said something to me that also stuck, which was, it's easy to have these inspirational quotes, guys, is really good, but it's easy to have a good performance. Anyone can have a good performance, but it's about stringing those together to make it consistent. So 2 very good things that you guys definitely said to me early doors that absolutely stuck with me, and it's true to my career, essentially. So, I was in the England system, and there was a time where it was semi-centralised, and obviously working my way through that. And then it turned full-time with Tracy. I'd lost my dad, and I was all over the place, to be honest with you. I was going to England sessions, and I hadn't done any training. I used to, in the week, try and go to the gym and just sit outside crying. I couldn't get myself into the gym, and hit real lows, to be honest with you. And obviously, when you're in those kind of positions, you're not yourself in the team environment. And I knew it had got to a point, and it was my S&C coach that I ended up confiding in a little bit, because I was like, okay, I can't just keep turning up after however many weeks of not doing anything, and then lifting 110 kg on my squats and shredding my legs apart. So I let him know, and he got me some support. He forwarded me to the doctor, and I had some proper support from there. And with that proper support, when I was working through it, I come to the decision that, I have to step away from this. If I'm ever going to make my England dream a thing, I'm going to have to step away, because I'm just not a true representative for myself, and I couldn't get my head in the right space in that environment. So I did. I stepped away and worked really hard on my mental health, and then decided eventually that it was time for me to get back into it. Didn't know whether I could do it. I remember speaking to Karen and just being like, I'm really unfit. I'm not in a good place. And she totally backed me to help me, and I busted gut over summer and got back into the programme, that's one of my proudest achievements, because I just know that I pulled myself out of one big old hole to get there. I went from not being able to do a 5-minute walk to doing a 5-minute run, to doing all the training that you need to do to get there, and getting back into the England programme. Jess straight away liked the look of me at wing attack, so we did a lot of work at wing attack. And you know what? I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was a massive challenge, but when you've been playing for a while, everything's the same, isn't it? You get the same information, the same feedback, you're working on the same thing. So getting to play something different was quite refreshing for me, to be honest with you. And it actually made me really focus on a side of my game that I needed work on. If I was playing the centre position, with my feeding and my vision and things like that. So it was a new challenge. I loved it. I managed to get player of the match against New Zealand and win a series against New Zealand in that position. So that's something I'm very proud of. And then obviously got myself into the Commonwealth Games and the World Cup. And, what we achieved at the World Cup after the year we had, coming fourth is such a hard thing. And, so many people, I know you've had a 4th place finish, have you, Tamsin?
Yeah, 2007 against Jamaica. I threw the last ball of the game away. That was fun.
Sorry
I mean, we were 11 down when I came onto the court, so
okay.
I mean,
so
I'll
you did,
give us warning, but
a bit of good.
But yeah, I can still see that pass.
Yes, it's pretty hard. It's hard to be in that position. So we had a lot of big talks and did a lot of hard work on ourselves as individuals and as a team, and to be able to go to the World Cup. Firstly, to get into the World Cup was amazing for me. To be picked up by tactics was amazing, but to go to a World Cup and see the hard work that we'd all done as a playing group and a staff group to get over number 1 in the world, number 2 in the world, to make it into a final is pretty epic. Obviously, we would have liked to have done better in that final, but you know what? You've got to have something to chase, haven't you?
Always, and that is it. I mean, there's so much in that, Max, and I appreciate you being so honest. Like the bravery of stepping away for a little while and getting your life back on track, because I think, and this is again so unique working with the pathway, and we had a lot of love last week from what we shared with Shani and I shared about that sort of journey, is that it's a long time playing. Like, I speak to players all the time. I'm like, dude, you are 16, 17. You could be playing for the next 20 to 25 years of your life. Just chill. Like, trust me, there is going to be so much that goes on, not only on the court, but in your personal life, in your career. Everything that happens is just going to be, it's going to have an effect. It can't not have an effect. So I think that bravery for me is huge. And actually then the mental shift for you to go, right, I'm going to work my ass off to get back into this side. And also I love hearing that about your change of positions as well, because I've been really vocal about the England squad, and it's my job to do that, and I'll always have an opinion. I prefer players and playing in their preferred position, and I actually gave you that player of the match against New Zealand, I'm pretty sure, when you played wing attack. You were brilliant that day. You're bloody brilliant. But I love you at centre wing defence. That's what I do, and I think to hear you and actually that spark and that lease of life, it was probably what you needed, right? Actually a big deal, and coaches recognising that is a huge part of that as well. I just want to touch quickly on the World Cup, because it was special, and wow, it was special, and we'd have loved you all to get across the line, but it was a change. I just wonder, you did a lot of soul searching after that Commonwealth Games, and then we got to the World Cup, and there was still so much chat about the squad. And again, one thing I've been vocal about is how much interchange there is between the group. Was that a positive for you as a player? Did it help you, like, just coming on, especially because where you were at with knee and everything else? And was it manageable for you all?
Yeah, I do. I think that is a hard one for me as a player, and I think it's taken some getting used to. With, I guess maybe Dan was a little bit like that as well, but with Karen and Tracy, it's a little bit more like you come off, they give you something that you're really working on, and you kind of go back on and try and get over the line. But there are different styles of coaching, and if you've got a group of players that have all got a different skill set, then you can also, instead of doing that, you can also just get those guys on and give them some instruction to come on and do that. And I think that was kind of the space we were in for World Cup, and it did work for us. So I think it definitely took a bit of a shift to get used to that, but we were all on the same page of just going on there, getting a job done, putting your best foot forward, and the coaches will guide us and let us know, like, from what they can see from the side. So it's different styles. You can't expect coaches to do the same things. I don't expect anybody to hold me to any level that any other coach has done for them. I'll be doing my own thing. So it is what it is.
It is what it is, and you're right, and it's situation, it's players, it's everything, and no way is the right way, and what can work with one group one year can be totally different.
Exactly.
Just quite intriguing to see that, because clearly for the World Cup, it pulled you all together. There was a very and I've been in internationals where you're never going to take the court or whatever, and I think the game's definitely shifted. Well, listen, as I say every week, could carry on this conversation, but I know you've got a birthday to go and celebrate. But I want to end on, I read on your bio, you are a self-confessed full-on netball geek, which makes me think if there was been a bit of a age gap between us and we played in the same teams, we'd have got on very well. We'd have gotten we'd be very good mates, Mal, I reckon. So what does this entail? What does full on netball geek entail?
Well, obviously, enjoy playing the game, enjoy watching the game, enjoy coaching the game. I started coaching probably a year after I started playing. So I started playing when I was in year 6, started coaching when I was in year 7. So it has literally been a part of my life forever. And I am, like I said to you earlier, I love learning. So I like to watch, other players do things and see, how do we get people to do that, or how can I do that? I love the thought of, there's so many concepts that we think about in the elite game, and I love trying to break that down for the younger ages. I don't know, I just find it fascinating. I like sport, and I love netball more than any sport, so I guess that's what a netball geek's like.
Well, what I will send out to everybody listening is, I'm going to guess that Max is up like the rest of us watching SSN at ridiculous times in the morning. So if you want another tweeting partner, give her a tweet, put on X, and she'll join in the conversation, I'm sure. But listen,
I've got my Mavs top.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Oh, right. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that Mavs top. yeah. Come on then.
What you say. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. We're looking forward to your career. I'm hoping that in 30 years' time we're going to have another conversation. You're still sitting on a bench somewhere in the world, Max, taking on a group, and still learning. But listen, good luck with the rest of the season. I mean, it's going to be a very good team to have to beat Manchester Thunder on the day, I'm sure. And we're looking forward to seeing how you progress on as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you.